All right, today we are going to be doing what's called the zero product property. So we are solving quadratic equations. So when you're solving these, you are solving for a variable. So we are wanting to get x equals, okay? So your zero product property says if a times b equals c, what am I saying? If a times b equals 0, then a can equal 0 or b can equal 0. So what that means is we're just going to take your first set of parentheses and set it equal to 0, and then your second set of parentheses and set it equal to 0. So use the zero product property to solve each factored equation. So my first thing in number 1, my first group would be 2x. So 2x equals 0. My second group is going to be 3x plus 2. So then I'm going to write 3x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, now my job is to get x by itself. So I'm going to divide this side by 2 and this by 2. That means my first x is going to be a 0 because 0 divided by 2 is 0. So I'm going to box 0. Then I've got to get this x by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to subtract 2 from both sides. This goes away. This gives you 3x equals negative 2. Now to get the 3 off the x, I divide by 3. So my second x is x equals negative 2 over 3. So what this is doing is it's giving us our x-intercepts. Okay, so if I were to put this in Desmos, the line would go through at 0 and this. Okay, next I'm going to take each part and set it equal to 0. My first part is negative 1 over 3 and set that equal to 0. Well, that doesn't make sense. Negative 1 over 3 does not equal 0. So we cross it off. Next, I'm going to do x plus 6 equals 0. Let's solve for x. Minus 6 on both sides. And we get x equals negative 6. That's our first x. Then we have 3x minus 5 equals 0. Solve for x. We're going to add 5 to both sides. So 3x equals a positive 5. But x is not by itself, so we're going to not subtract. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we divide each side by 3. So my second x is 5 over, not 5, 5 over 3. Okay, so the way that we just did this was we set the equation equal to 0. Okay, we didn't have to do it on these problems, but what we have to do next is we have to factor. So that's where we're going to get into it on numbers 3 and 4. Then we are going to apply the zero product property, aka we're going to solve for the zeros. And we know that a 0 is an x-intercept. Okay, so number 3, what we're gonna have to do, let me move this. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to factor this equation. So let's go through our steps. My first step, set equation equal to 0. It is already equal to 0. My next step is factor. Well, in order to factor, I'm gonna have to do A equals, B equals, and C equals. My A is 1. My B is 4, and my C is negative 5. Okay, this is kind of just a little refresher if you don't remember how to factor. Now 1 times negative 5 is going to give me negative 5. And I need to find what multiplies to give me negative 5 but adds to give me a positive 4. Well, that's only 2 numbers, negative 5 and 1, and then negative 1 and 5. So our answer is these two. So we're going to do negative 1 divided by, my AX is going to be 1x, so divided by 1x, and then 5 divided by 1x. Okay, we know that you can't simplify either one of these, so we're going to get x minus 1, and we're going to get x plus 5 because we did our bottoms up. Then it says to apply the zero product property. In order to do that, you're going to set both of these equal to 0. So this is what's extra. So what's extra, I'm going to put in this different color this you should already know how to do. What's extra is saying x minus 1 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. You can either write it with the parentheses on there or with the parentheses off. I did it both ways just to show you. For this one, we're going to add 1 to both sides, so x equals 1. For this one, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides, so x equals negative 5. Almost forgot my negative there. Got to be careful. Okay. Now for number 4, this one is not equal to 0 yet, so we've got to make this negative 1 a 0. In order to do that, we're going to add 1 to both sides. So this now equals 0. We cannot add 1 to an x squared or an x, so it's now going to read 3x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Now that we can do that, we can do our, whoops, well, I wrote that in the wrong order. Our a is 3, our b is negative 4, and our c is a positive 1. A times c is going to give me a positive 3. So I need my factors of positive 3 that add to give us a negative 4. So 3 times 1 gives me 3. Negative 3 times negative 1 also gives me 3, and that is what we're using. Okay. Our ax is going to be 3x this time. So now we have negative 3 over 3x, and then we have negative 1 over 3x. This right here is not going to reduce, so you can do bottoms up, but this right here, 3 goes into 3, so this is going to end up being 1, negative 1 over 1x, and then bottoms up. So our factors are x minus 1 and 3x minus 1. Okay, now this is the new part. We're going to set them both equal to 0. I guess I can put that equal 0 right here too. So we're going to have x minus 1 equals 0 and 3x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides, and we're going to get x equals 1. This one's a little bit longer though. We're still going to add 1 to both sides, but we get 3x equals positive 1. Divide it by 3 to get x by itself. So x equals 1 over 3. So my x-intercepts are 1 and 1 over 3, or 1/3. Okay, and I can bring it over. Whew, we already know what this is because the solutions of a quadratic equation are also called zeros, are also called roots, and then are also called x-intercepts. Okay, now I also want to show you how to do this on Desmos. So once you get to this stopping point, we are going to do 5 through 9 together. So when you are done, put your head down and shut your computer.